Hey, good morning and happy 4th of July if you were in the United States. And for those of you that celebrated Canada Day later or earlier on this week, a happy Canada Day to you, to our Canada audience. And my host is from Canada. So welcome here. And I'm Stanley Dietrich with 360 Life Without Limits. And today's episode is about jumping in. And it's about the idea that there's so much more to life that we really experience. And it's only when we jump in. I'm a coach that helps people take that plunge, take that step. Tracy Borson has coached me with some marketing ideas, and she also required that I jump. And sometimes I looked over the edge and I'm like, I don't even know if there's anything down there. And she said, jump. So it's getting out of that comfort zone. I'm going to let Tracy introduce herself and welcome again to this episode.
Thank you, Stan. I'm always glad to be here in these conversations. So amazing. Um, it's funny that you kicked off the conversation with the concept of jumping in because I often tell my clients that if you want to sit on the fence, then we are not ready to work together because I have every intention of pushing you off of the fence. Now, I also have every intention of putting some big cushy pillows on the ground. So you're not going to crash or you're not going to fall into nothing. You're not going to crash and break an arm. But it does take a leap. And I'm really excited to have this conversation today because I think one of the reasons why people often don't take a leap is because they're either concerned about what you said, jumping into nothingness, what's going to happen, or they have this extrapolated fear already of what it might like to be in that water, to be in that pond. And then our brains are very good at extrapolating bad outcomes.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we expect we're going to drown, then yeah, they probably won't be super excited about jumping in. But then what do we miss by not jumping in?
Yeah. So the idea that no one drowns by jumping into the water, nobody drowns by falling into the water, but it's staying there that does bring that experience, and that can be a literal and it can be a proverbial drowning.
Right.
And it is the concept that we gain based on our perception of others that we decide whether we're going to drown or not. And one of the examples that I love to share is when my kids were first learning to jump off the board. They would jump off the edge of the pool. Now, jumping off the edge of the pool, you coax them in, and you're wading water more than you can imagine. And now you get out in the middle of the pool, and they're on the edge of that board and they're looking over what must seem like an eternity, and you try to give them the confidence that you're there, you've got them, you're not going to let them go under, they're not going to sink, they're going to have a blast, but they can't see that fun. And it is just jumping in, and the idea that when we don't try something new, we end up at the end of our days, whenever that may be, and then we can have regrets. And I hear this so often as I work with clients, is that they say, I wish I would have done that then. And I say, well, why not do it right now? Well, I'm too old for that. And I'm like, why do you say that? Right?
Well, and I mean, societal narratives, right? They're tough to beat sometimes. It's not even that's us that thinks us necessarily or thinks that necessarily. It's that people, and I would say like specifically women, we get a societal expiry date. Right? And once we've reached this age, then we are not useful to society anymore. And it's a tough experience to wade your way through that to keep using water metaphors, right? You have to figure out, is that my belief or is that someone else's belief that is I have taken as acceptable? But do I really believe that? And if I don't really believe that, then I create the opportunity to accomplish whatever I want to accomplish. It's never too late unless you're dead. So as long as you're still alive, there's opportunities, there's possibilities.
Yeah, the worst that can happen, and this is what I want to express, is the worst that can happen. You might want to write this down, whoever's listening. The worst that can happen is you have an experience. And an experience is just the opportunity to see something that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And life is full of experiences if we allow it to become, or is it a glass that's only half full?
Well, and then I think, then like, where does this complexity come in of like, the what if I jump, I might die? Right? It's the number one reason why I haven't gone like paragliding, is that like I might die doing that. And so when we're talking about jumping into something new, or talking about jumping into water, talking about jumping out of a plane, there are these thoughts that enter our brain that are those fearful thoughts: fear of failure, fear of dying, versus what we talk about a lot on this show, which is like using our imagination to create transformation. We don't use our imagination to come up with good, fun stuff, like the fun things that kid might experience by jumping in a pool, or the fun thing we might experience by jumping out of a plane. But we use all of those mental calories to create fear. And then there's like one of these two things that happens. So that either keeps you on the board, right, and you don't jump into the pool, or then I think our brain also kind of gives us a high five that says like, hey, you avoided the like potential for drowning. So good job, self. So I feel like there's actually a like complex thought process happening there.
Yeah. When you're talking about our brain celebrating, that is so key, because this is what happens. And so my question to you is, you want to hand glide?
Not really.
Okay. Well, why not?
There are other things I would rather do.
Okay. But that was the example that you brought up.
It's the
Okay.
example I brought up because of like,
Yeah.
there was a group of people that went when I was in my first job. I worked at this company and everybody was going to go, not hang gliding, the one where you have the parachute. Paraglide, I don't know what it's called actually. But anyway, everybody went and I was like, I do not want to go. And like bungee jumping, another thing I would just like, I had no interest in doing. But then also like, where do we, because I'll tell you, Stan, and you know this about me, but other people might not know. I believe that there are things that we're afraid to do because we've never done them before, and maybe we're not extrapolating the fun and things like that. But then there's also things that we don't want to do because it's not something we would do.
Sure.
And maybe it's a bad example to use like hang gliding, because I don't think there's like a group of people that wouldn't hang glide. But when it comes to like making decisions from a personal branding perspective, whether that's in a business perspective or in like how you want to live your life perspective, I believe there are things we would do and there are things that we wouldn't do. So then how do we figure out which one of those things this is? And do we at the end? I mean, like, I don't think everybody can take every risk that exists in the world, right? Like, that's not the point either. So how do we assess for ourselves? Like, what are these risks that we are going to decide to choose to take?
Very good. Very good. And I was really waiting to feed into that. And it's kind of the strategy that I have, especially when I'm working with clients, is that I push that limit so that because I want to get their justification out of that. And so hand gliding was a perfect example. So The idea is to look at what is the most extreme that I wouldn't do. All right. Um, Getting on the episode of Survivor where they're eating bugs and creepy crap. I'm not eating
Yes,
that.
anytime someone has to eat balut, I'm just like,
Yeah. Oh,
ugh.
I know that stayed with me forever.
Yeah.
A very bad. I had bad dreams about that episode. Anyway, but the idea is, what is it that you could jump into? What is it that you could jump into with a coach, a mentor, a partner, a business colleague, uh, somebody who would collaborate with you to help you get to another level and know that they're there with you. And this is where the key is that, you know, it is making a list of the things that you'd like to do. And it's not just the bucket list, but it is the things. What is it that I'd like to do? What is it, the things that inspire me, and why haven't I done them? And this is my question when I am talking to anybody, whether it's the first time I met them or whether it's the 20th time I've worked with them. It is, what is it that you'd like to do? What is it that you dreamed about doing? What is it that you thought about doing? I have people that have pulled out the paintbrushes and began to paint again. And another client created a journal of the things, the thoughts, and now the beauty. This is the beauty of that. She's given that away as a gift to family. I have one, one of the first ones, and that is the desire from other people. And how long does it take to open up the possibility of saying, I'm going to jump in? I don't know if I can swim, but I'm going to jump in. And it is growing outside of our comfort zone. Our comfort zone, if we do it, we live in a box, we sleep in a box. It's got walls around it. The bed that we sleep in came in a box. We drive a box to go to a box store to buy boxed foods to put them on a shelf just to open up boxes and to throw boxes away.
It's a lot of boxes.
That's a lot of boxes. Now, what if we expanded that and said, what could I create? What could I do that is outside of the zone that I can jump in? And what's the worst thing that can happen is an experience. And it is not the experience, it is my perception of the experience that creates an outcome. So my response to that experience creates my outcome. But if I look at that experience and I say, what is in the water? How deep is the water? And who is going to be in the water with me? Use this in marketing. It was, I don't know the method of doing marketing from a LinkedIn perspective. It's not been my thing. And you opened up some doors and you showed me what those marketing tactics look like. And it's like, I've never done that before. And you say, well, now is your first time. So now after today, you can't say that you never did that before. And it was that there was some uncertainty in that experience. But once I got through that, then it was like, I've done that. And it wasn't just to check it off a box, but it was to say, I've done that. Now, what else is possible?
And okay, so I want to come back to this, Stan, because this is the thing that like really resonated with me of this. Life is unpredictable. Okay. I don't know what's in the water. Maybe there's fish in the water. Maybe there's not fish in, or maybe there's diseases in the water. Maybe there is fun in the water. Maybe there's play. Maybe, I don't know, right? Like
Right.
and none of these things from a life or a business perspective do we ever really know. Okay? Like all we really know is that it's uncertain. Like what is available, what is possible. But what we can create intention around is who is going to be in the water with me.
Right.
Because if I know that, like, this is, I'm teaching my son to swim right now. And if I'm in the water with him, the kid has no fear. Okay? He will swim, and because he knows if something happens, I can save him. Right? And I know that I can save him. And we have this whole experience of that, like, everything will be fine because we are in the pool together.
Right.
But if he is in the pool by himself, he wants to wear a life jacket, which right now for his skill level is responsible.
Yes.
If I'm not watching, or if my husband is with him, or like a whole bunch of different combinations, that level of confidence doesn't exist. And that's because there's that love. I mean, like, parent kid relationship goes like a little bit deeper, more than just like what you've built from a relationship perspective. But when you invest in building these relationships
Right.
with people that you trust, then you say, okay, well, Tracy wants me to do a LinkedIn Live, and I'm not really sure how to do that, but like Tracy's pretty confident that it's going to be good for me. So I trust her. I'm going to try it. Right?
Right.
And same thing I've shared on this show, right? Like, Stanley gives me knee exercises or things to try with my water pick. And I'm like, hey, well, I don't really know what that's going to do, but I trust Stanley. He's in the water with me. So we'll be fine. It'll be fine. And you have that because of the person or people that are in that with you. Then you have this like level of confidence that it's going to be fine. And you have a greater possibility of using your mental calories to create that the to create that transformation, to break the boundaries of where you have been before, because you have the support of people. But Stan, when we were talking about this idea, you shared with me, as a lifeguard, one of the things that's important to take into consideration when you are in the water with other people who are actually experiencing drowning. So I'd love for you to share that. And also then we can play with like, how do we extrapolate that from like not the actual drowning scenarios, but because we also don't want to necessarily like pull under the people that we've built all these trustworthy relationships with in the pool.
Exactly. Exactly. And as a lifeguard, I have had the opportunity and also the privilege, and I say it in that way, the opportunity and privilege to save somebody from drowning. And one time I was at a hotel and there was a swimming pool and the guy jumped in. Actually, I think he fell in. And I look over and I'm very alert when I'm near a body of water. And he started flagging. I mean, just going crazy. And I jump in, I threw my wallet out, I jump in, clothes and all, and I came up from behind him. And that's how you save someone that is drowning. Now, when I was a kid, I've also saved kids that were drowning in larger bodies of water. And you come up from behind. And the idea is because anything that they see that's in front of them, they're going to try to pull to, because they get into a panic mode. And this is what happens in business. This is what happens in coaching, is that sometimes people will panic in a situation and they're just trying to grasp for anything. And when you come up from behind and you're able to support them, now you can calm them, and there is that connection that says, hey, I'm not in this by myself. And it can be in the water or it can be outside of the water. And my kids, my daughter was 6 months old and she was diving 10 feet underwater with me. She would just grab around my neck and I would dive underwater and I would come up. And like, the other parents were just flabbergasted because their kids are over on the side of the pool screaming. You'd think that they were dying and they weren't even in the water. And they're like, how do you do that? And so one of the tricks that I showed them was, you take a baby. My kids were underwater at 6 weeks. Okay. Submerged. I totally submerged them. I never wanted my children to be afraid of water. So you take a baby and you blow in their face. A human reaction is to inhale and hold your breath. So you count 1, 2, 3, you blow in their face, they go, and then you dunk them. You take them underwater. And I showed this to parents. And when I taught swim lessons and when I worked with parents with children that were just learning, that is the method. And when you teach somebody that they don't have to be afraid, that their natural instincts can do these things, it's just the coach's ability to extrapolate, or you as a marketer being able to extrapolate the processes that may work for just this person because of the element or the environment. And so let's say we're in the water and you know that you're safe because I'm near. Now you have less trepidation. You may have some trepidation, but it is the ability to go, I'm in this with someone else. I'm not in it by myself. And people don't drown by falling in the water. They drown by staying in there too long, whether it's a relationship water, a business water, a occupation, whatever that water is. That's and you know the thing of it is people stay there too long, they hate it.
Well, and I think this is why I love this show, because at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of these things end up becoming simple, but it's because if I feel like I'm drowning, regardless of like, so I'm going to use an actual drowning example. So I'm a very good swimmer. I have been a very good swimmer my entire life. 7 years ago, I did a triathlon, and I did all of my training for the swim portion of it by myself, right? Not in a gigantic group of people, which is what a triathlon actually is. And so while I was very confident in my swimming abilities and my swimming speed and everything, what I did not extrapolate was all of these people trying to swim at the same time and kicking in your face and like, and this part of the scenario. And I got about 50 meters into the swim and I was like, I'm going to drown. They're going to have to like come and pull me out of the water because like I'm having a panic attack because there's all this stuff happening. And if I would have kept going with that same thought process, that probably would have happened. That probably would have happened. What I did is I was like, okay, just, you can swim. You're a very good swimmer, right? Like you are not going to drown, but you don't want to swim in this, right? In the mass of people. So I was like, I'm just going to let people go in front of me and I'm going to swim, right? I'm going to swim in space and then I was fine, right? But there is that decision point where you know you're drowning, but and if you keep thinking the same things, you are going to keep drowning. And if we're talking about actually drowning in the water, you're probably going to drown. If we're talking about it metaphorically, then yeah, you're not going to physically die because you're floundering around with your marketing, right? This is not going to actually kill you. But that feeling of drowning won't go away. The feeling of drowning won't go away if you keep in that same mindset. And one of the things you said, Stan, was talking about how you will grasp for anything when you're drowning. And like, this is 100% true in like entrepreneurial business building, career searching, marketing, right? So many arenas is that people get quote unquote desperate and they'll try anything, right? Now I'll try anything to make this work. But now you're just, even if that thing could work, possibly, now you're just pulling it under with you because that is your mindset. So the trick is actually in the switch. How do we turn off our experience of drowning without changing the scenario? So I'm sure you have thoughts on that, Stan, but that's what was coming.
And that's the truth of it. It is when it's our perception, it's our reaction to the experience creates our outcome. And I was on the call last night with a gal and I was talking to her about why she wanted to do what she wanted to do. And as I was asking her, she's all bubbly and blah, 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 has having a really good time in the beginning, and then I asked, well, why is that important? And you could see her energy kind of shift. And then I went even deeper into a desire to understand what it was that she wanted. And you could just see it drop. And I allowed that occurrence to remain for a moment. What might seem like an eternity to her, but what I was allowing her to do was to jump in the water and to see what her surroundings were, and then I was able to pull her up. But I didn't even have to pull her up. I just said, why don't you extend your legs? And she extended her legs, and she was standing in what earlier she was drowning in. And I said, I could tell that there was an energy shift. And she's like, how do you do that? It's because this is what I'm trained to do. And to allow you to experience that you can actually touch the bottom while you think it's so much further below you, but you're in a panic mode because I'm asking you a question to define what it is that you desire. Now I'm just going to say, extend your legs and you can touch the bottom. It's sometimes we can't see the bottom, and it's right there if we just extend our legs. And this is what I encourage people to do is to jump. Just jump. It's going to look sloppy. It's going to look funny. It's going to look goofy. It's going to feel uncomfortable. But more people that I talk to that have retired have more regret because they didn't jump in.
Well, and again, like jumping in is so much easier when you have somebody to jump in with that can either like save you. If I jump in this pool and I actually can't touch the bottom, okay, I have people around me who can do that. But I also trust you to a degree that if you say extend my legs, like I will take that action.
Right.
And I want to just kind of like take that and go like the steps back, because I think a lot of times, and I see this I don't know, like specifically in business, because we're looking for business experts to like teach us how to do things. But this is also equally relevant for like experts in life, right? Like, what are we looking
Right.
for our experts in life to teach us? At the end of the day, no one can extend your legs for you except you,
Right.
right? That you need to own that experience for yourself. But also, how are we approaching the world, approaching our business to build those relationships, right? Like, I don't know how many of you know, but like Stan and I, we were at the same event, virtual event. We didn't talk to each other on that virtual event. We just happened to be on the same virtual event. And then I was like, oh, I don't know. I saw Stanley. This seems like a guy I might want to know. So I reached out to him and he accepted my invitation. And then we had a chat. And then we had like lots of chats about lots of things. Right? But that doesn't happen because two people ended up in the same room by happenstance, right?
Right.
That happens because two people decided to like keep investing in building a relationship. And on a daily basis, I think particularly in business, we are not trying to build those relationships. We are not putting effort into building those relationships. We are not putting time and energy and like investment, right? Regardless of whether or not you want to talk about putting financial investment into anything, but like, what are you investing into the relationships? And do you even have an intention of building that? Because at some point, most of us are going to get into a scenario where we feel like we're drowning. And
Right.
whether that's like, I'm going through a thing with my grandma right now, and lots of times I feel like I'm drowning because I don't know how to navigate that. but I have people that I have relationships I've created
Right.
that can support me in that. The relationships didn't get gifted to me. They didn't just manifest magically into existence. I created those. I had to put effort into it. I had to spend time in conversation. I had to be vulnerable. I had to share things that I don't share with everybody. Really, you have to create those. And unless you create those, even if you have people who would jump into the water with you, you don't feel like you have people who are in the water with you or that would jump into the water with you. And so then you don't end up doing those things. But like, I don't know, this is something that's just like really coming up for me this week is like, if we want to have this type of support in our businesses, in our lives, in our relationships, we have got to invest in that. We have to spend time. We have to create intentions. We have to spend energy in investing into those relationships. Otherwise, we'll always be drowning by ourselves and we'll always be grasping for like the new shiny thing to
Right.
save us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing that I see that a lot of, self development or personal development junkies, there's always this new shiny self development thing. And I see coaches do the
Talk about
same
self
thing.
development. There's always a new shiny thing in marketing.
Yeah. There's always a new shiny thing, right? There's always something in it. And what I want to help people do is say, hey, it's a body of water, whatever that body of water is. And maybe you had an experience in a body of water elsewhere. Maybe it was a relationship. Maybe it was an occupation. You trusted somebody. You had a friend that you allowed yourself to get close to, and they took advantage of that. Not everybody's like that. So we can't judge any one experience on every other experience as possible. And that's the beauty of jumping in and not looking at it as a permanent definition. There is no experience that defines us, not one, for the rest of our life. Not one experience will define us for the rest of our life. So whatever it is that somebody's gone through, the thing that I want to encourage people is that whatever it is that you've gone through or you're presently going through right now. And I've had the phone calls. I've had the phone calls from somebody who wanted to take their life. I did not know them, and I talked them off the fence. I've had the phone call where somebody was on the fence and ready just to throw in the towel, and I talked them off the fence. And it's looking at the opportunity or the experience with a different set of eyes, and that's what this is about. It's about taking the leap
Yeah.
and jumping in. And what's the worst that could happen? So if I ask somebody for a favor or a gesture or a thought and they say no, so
I'm at like status quo.
is that no for now? Is that no forever? Is it no that, I'm just too busy? What is the defining of that no?
Okay, but Stan, okay, there's something coming up for me because I'm thinking about my experience with the swimming, right? And something that I knew about myself is that I'm a very good swimmer. So I had like confidence in myself to switch my mindset from I'm drowning to I can swim. How can I? How can I create the right space for me to be able to succeed at this? So one, how important is that level of confidence in yourself that even though like we want to talk about surrounding ourselves with people who make it easier for us to go swimming, how important is it at the end of the day, how important is that confidence in making that switch? And then also, if we feel like there's arenas, like I would hazard a guess that when you met me, I actually think I heard you say, I don't know anything about marketing. I'm bad at marketing. Right? Like none of this is true, but that's fine. We can start from there. But the to get to the point where you can make that mindset shift, you have to have enough confidence in yourself that you will make the decision. So how do we build that kind of confidence in ourselves if we don't have that kind of confidence today?
Okay, so my question to everyone listening is what comes first, confidence or courage?
Mm.
Okay, and so when I establish that, then I can begin to build on whichever one I think the answer is. Now, since this isn't a multiple choice and you're not in school, I'm going to give you the answer. Okay. It is always courage that comes first. Because as I stood on that, as I swam out, which seemed like forever on the end of the board, underneath the board, as I watched the courage go from jumping off the edge of the pool to now climbing 3 steps to go to the 1 meter board. And what must have seemed like an eternity into that water, my children looked over. And once they jumped and they were putting their hands out and their legs out, and I caught them, and then I shifted them over to the edge of the pool. It was that courage that came. And then, after 3 or 4 times, it's like, no, I don't need you out there, Dad. Don't need you out there. And that's what happens. It's so you got 50 meters out. My question is, were you ever at that 50 meters out in that same kind of body of water before? Because it's different swimming in a clear body of water than swimming out in a lake or in the ocean.
Hmm.
Okay.
And no, I hadn't been in that body of water.
And that's what happened, is that your mind went into a place and said, I'm going to drown because I can't see my normal surroundings. And it's preparing ourselves for that normal surrounding. It's preparing ourselves. It's taking that first step. It's, a baby walking. They get up and they take their first step and they fall. They take their first step and they fall. And they never get past that first step the first day or so. Now, they got the courage to get off of their pants, off their seat, and stand up and grab something and take that. And then the courage was to take the next couple, and after a couple, then they fall. And sometimes they fall on their face and it hurts. And this is what happens, is that once we become logical, we think jumping is going to hurt us. We think the water is going to be our enemy, whatever that water is for whoever's listening. Realizing the fact that where your surroundings are and looking around and go, it's only 10 feet deep. And there's 5 other people. If I just ask one person to watch me, would you watch me while I jump? And this is the thing about the marketing, and this is the social media marketing for me was like, it's just stupid. I just did not like it because, hey, I'm a in-person kind of guy. And I didn't understand. And this is what happens, is when we don't understand something, we develop a fear about it.
Mm.
And so it is, okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to do these steps. Well, what are these steps having to do with marketing? Well, that has everything to do with marketing. But these are the steps that you take first. And then it becomes easier. And it becomes like part of our experience. And an experience lasts forever. Now, if you've had a bad experience, here again, I'm going to say, let's challenge the narrative. Who made up the story? And let's challenge that thought.
This is why I love these conversations and why I love the Stronger Futures project as a whole, is that these concepts are not just like singularly relevant, right? The concept is relevant for the human experience. And regardless of where you're feeling that right now, if you've got like personal stuff that has you feeling like you're underwater, or business stuff, or relationship stuff, or job search stuff, or like going to work stuff, that doesn't matter. It could come from anywhere. But when we take a moment, first of all, just to realize, like, okay, I feel like I'm drowning here. What are the thoughts? What are the feelings that are like continuing to lead to that, right? That continually make me feel like I'm drowning. And how can I switch that? Can I have a conversation with a person to help me work through it? Can I change my environment, right? Can I get out of the water? Right? Like, what can you do? And there's lots of things you can do, which is why at the end of the day, we talk about imagination is what empowers transformation. Because if you can imagine something you would do, what would I do? I'd drop to the back of the pack and just swim my own race. Yeah, you can totally do that, right?
Right.
When we get to the point where we can notice enough what's happening and then decide to be courageous. I think, and this is another theme that I feel like has been coming up for me this week, is that I don't know if I've shared this on this show before, but I have this practice with my 6-year-old when he's afraid of something, to ask him if we can practice being brave today. And sometimes he says yes, and sometimes he says no. But the point is that bravery, that courage, it's a practice. We choose, and we don't choose because we're not afraid. We choose to do it anyway. And I will tell you, like, it was one of the most inspiring moments in my life when he was 4 years old and he didn't want to go into school, and he couldn't quite verbalize why he didn't want to go into his classroom. And so I asked him that question, can we practice being brave today? And he thought about it for a moment. And then he was like, yes. And he took his lunch kit and he went into the classroom. And I was like, dude, if we could all just do that on a daily basis, where we just say,
Right.
like, this is terrifying and I'm going to practice being brave today. I mean, I think we could accomplish a lot of great things.
I love that. Yeah. And that is a lesson that he can take forever with him. And as you continue to integrate that into different areas, and having that benchmark, having that place where he is, I did that because I was brave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that courage.
Right.
And that's where that confidence comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared with you one time I rented a windsurfer, and I
It
didn't
was
take
not
lessons.
hugely
Didn't take lessons. I thought I've sailed. I can do this. So I'm tacking out back and forth. I'm getting out in the bay. I'm getting way away from land, and I'm thinking it's about time to flip this thing around and use the wind to get me back. Well, it's a little bit different on a wind surfboard than it is on a sailboat. And I keep getting a little bit further out, and now the land and the people are looking like ants, and I'm probably a couple miles away. And I had this recollection in my memory from the movie Jaws when I watched it in, I think it was 1976 when it came out. And one of the lines in the movie was, the children are swimming in the bay. That's where the sharks are. And that thought, I'm thinking, I'm a big seal, and I can't see the bottom for sure, and I'm a little bit further out than I should be. Now, I was in the Gulf, so it's not like there was a bunch of waves, but I'm swimming back and I'm paddling and I'm thinking, now I'm really looking like a seal, and my arms, I think they were about this big by the time I got back on shore. And I hadn't done that again, but I said I would do that. Now, I had the opportunity when I went to Florida a couple weeks ago, and my son took me out and we got on a surfboard. And it was the first time that was the last time that I've done something for the first time. And the fun and the joy of that. Now, I almost got up on the board twice, but I was using a short board. He said, if I'd had a long board, and he said, the thing about it is, Dad, when I first started surfing, and he makes it look like an art. He surfs through these tunnels, and it made me appreciate it even more. But what I want to communicate here is um, that what he told me was, he said, for the first 3 months, everybody was giving me all this advice, telling me to add this and do that, and I was getting frustrated. So it is taking one person and taking one element and allowing that, and that's when you perfect it. That's when you get the courage and the confidence that work together. And that's what I want to communicate. It is, hey, whatever it is that you're doing, if you're not doing everything that you want to do, then get a coach, get a mentor, get someone that can walk beside you and help you take that next step, take that jump. You're not going to drown, not if you have the right people around you. And
We won't
that's,
let you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we got you. Any other thoughts on that, Tracy?
No, it just like it leaves me too with like who are the people around you who you would actually confidently say they've got me. Right?
Right.
Like these people would not let anything bad happen to me. And I think like something that's coming up for me is I had an experience earlier this morning where somebody thought something about me that was not accurate, and if they don't have the desire to build the relationship to get to know me to show them that that's wrong, then I can't control that about all people. But I know I have people who have got me. I know that there are people who know that I have got them,
Mhm.
and that's it. So just find your people.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Find your people, move forward, and ask for help.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to seek out guidance.
No.
So, thanks for joining us today. If you've liked this, please hit like, subscribe, and share this with somebody that could use this information, and not just to use it for information, but to allow transformation to take place and to use your creativity to go, what else is possible?
Mhm.
So, until we meet next week, have a fantastic 4th of July for those of us that are celebrating that today, and a belated Canada Day for our Canadian friends. And so we'll see you, and thank you again.